This is Dr. Gerald Zandstra. I'm one of the co-founders of Inno-Versity, and I serve as its Chief Strategy Officer. Those in higher education are seeing unimaginable shifts in what education even means. Now, the good news is higher ed has been shifting toward online for a long time. Many of you in higher ed, have certainly spent years thinking about this transition to a more digital form of education delivery systems. And some of you are very far out in front of that. Some of you are not. Many of you were not caught flat-footed, but some of you have been caught flat-footed by the virus and the need to suddenly vacate a campus. I can't imagine what that's like. I've spent quite a bit of my life on campuses and colleges and universities, both as a student and as a faculty member. And this enormous shift, and it's not just the amount of shift that's occurred, it's the speed at which it's occurred. That's been remarkable. Campuses that 3 weeks ago were not even thinking ever about completely shutting down a campus have in a week or two been told, that's it, you're done. So those of you who build curriculum and those of you who are instructional designers inside of universities and higher education, the change is enormous. We're not going to go back. It's not like when the coronavirus, I don't think anyway, that when the coronavirus is done, that we're simply going to return to the way that things have been. I think we're in for a complete change. Students are going to get more and more acclimated to online learning for many of you. And some of our clients are some of the largest academic institutions in the world. For some of you, this shift was relatively seamless. You have good material, you've been working on this, but for some, not so much. And I think this is the opportunity to think about the future. Online's been interesting to those of us in higher ed for a long time, right? It's a cheaper way, you don't have brick and mortar. There are some challenges to train faculty members on how to do it. I know the very first time I taught a course online, probably more than a decade ago, it was a challenge. I needed to be tutored. I think the university where I was at the time wasn't overly helpful in that. I think they thought that there's in-course, in classroom teaching and then online teaching, and you just do what you were going to do in a classroom and do that online. Maybe some of you made that transition easier than I did, but it wasn't seamless for me. It took some serious work to figure that out. So I think now is the time to think not only about the student experience, but also about the faculty experience. For most universities, their true strength, right? The core of who they are is really their brand. It's the culture of learning that they've created. For some, it's actually the curriculum, right? It's the curricula that's been developed, and that is their brand. I think going forward, two things are going to be important. Institutions of higher education that think the transition is simply from classroom to online without thinking in bigger, broader categories, I think those universities are going to struggle. I think right now is the moment to realize that significant thought needs to go into instructional design. And we all get distracted a little bit by the technology, right? We see, and the technology is wonderful. It's fantastic. The things that we can do now are so much higher than the things that we all could do 3 or 4 years ago, and certainly way more than 10 years ago. But I think we need to not be too distracted by the technology. We need to come back to the core of good adult education. We need to be thinking and talking about how do we maintain the core of our brand, of the courses that we create, of how they're designed and how they're built, and all of the theory that goes into them. It seems strange in the middle of a crisis that the coronavirus has brought on us all to say we need to go back to theory. But I think we need to go back to theory. And I think we need to deepen our thinking on theory of higher ed. None of this is new, right? Many of you have been doing this for decades. But I think as a community of people that care very, very much about higher education, we need to go back to the theory and think, how are we going to demonstrate good theory, good instructional design, using the new technology that we've had, that is now available to us. We've seen some remarkable shifts. I talked recently to one university that said, look, we were a little slow to get to the digital stage, to get to online learning, and we decided that coming into it so late, we wouldn't want to become just another university with some online courses. And so they haven't made it yet, they're in the process of making the full-on transition where their course delivery structure will be in virtual reality. That's an enormous change. It's an enormous opportunity. Some of you are doing it already, but I think that we're still on the left side of that bell curve of adaptability to virtual. Same thing with augmented reality. I think the trick here is going to be maintain the culture of learning in your institution, maintain its brand, maintain your excellence, your commitment to excellence, and use all of the tools that you have available to you, but make sure in all of that the solid core of instructional design, of what it means to teach an adult, is the recipient of a big, bright light. Let's do some good thinking about that together. Thank you.